Hello. Welcome to Examining Fictional Heroes and the Authors Behind Them. My name is Wayne Browder. In our last episode, we began examining the Gordon story, Sons of the Hawk, by Robert E. Howard. We are going to continue in that story, take a few excerpts from chapter 1 and chapter 2. And as discussed in the last episode, we are not concentrating only on the main characters, but also on supporting characters and even villains. We're taking a look into the thoughts and traits of these characters as well. In the last episode, we detailed how Brent's friend Stockton had been murdered, and he had asked his friend Brent to go to Afghanistan to seek Francis Xavier Gordon. And he warned Brent against an organization known as the Black Tigers. He said, "Say to him, the Black Tigers have a new prince. They call him Abdel Kafid, but his real name is Vladimir Jakrovich." So, that sets the tone for the things that happen in this episode and chapter. Brent has started his journey to try to find Gordon. Gordon was not in Kabul. This Brent learned from the lips of no less than the Emir himself, wearing his European garments as if born to them, but with the sharp, restless eyes of a man who knows he is a pawn between powerful rivals, and whose nerves are worn thin by the constant struggle for survival. Not even the long arm of empire reached beyond Kabul. The Emir ruled the tribes after a fashion, with a dominance that dared not presume too far. This was the country of the hills, where law was hinged on the strong arm wielding the long knife. To all effects, Gordon had vanished into thin air. The farther they got away from Kabul, the more open the hostility. Only once did a question evoke a spontaneous response, and that was a suggestion that Gordon had been murdered by hostile tribesmen. At that, sardonic laughter yelled up from the wild men, the fierce mocking mirth of the hills. El Borak slain by his enemies? Is the gray wolf devoured by the fat-tailed sheep? And another gust of dry, ironic laughter, as hard as the black crags that burned under a sun of liquid flame. And so, one night, far from Kabul, Brent's escort is murdered, and he is taken hostage by the Black Tigers, the very organization Stockton warned him against. His suffering had been so intense he often wished they had killed him outright. He was allowed to ride, and he was fed grudgingly when the others ate. But the food was niggardly. He who had never known hunger was never without it now, a gnawing misery. His coat had been taken from him, and the nights were a long agony in which he almost froze on the hard ground in the icy winds. He wearied unto death of the day-long riding over incredible trails that wound up and up until he felt as if he could reach out a hand, if his hands were free, and touch the cold, pale sky. He was kicked and beaten until the first fiery resentment and humiliation had been dissolved in a dull hurt that was only aware of the physical pain, not of the injury to his self-respect. At times, Brent's escort mocked him. For the pride of race, he stiffened his spine and set his jaw. He plumbed unsuspected depths of endurance, legacy of a clean, athletic life, sharpened by the hard traveling of the past weeks. The sun was poised on the knife-edge crest of a ridge to the west, a blood-colored ball, turning a streak of sky to flame. Against that crimson ball, a horseman appeared suddenly, a centaur image, black against the blinding curtain. Below him, every rider turned in his saddle, and rifle bolts clicked. It did not need the barked command of Muhammad Ez-Zahir to halt the troop. There was something wild and arresting about that untamed figure in the sunset that held every eye. The rider's head was thrown back, the horse's long mane streaming in the wind. The stranger looked like a desert dandy beside the ragged men of the troop, but it was a dandyism definitely masculine, from the silken turban to the silver-heeled boots. His bright-hued robe was belted with a gold-buckled girdle that supported a Turkish saber and a long dagger. A rifle jutted its butt from a scabbard beneath his knee. The rider, well poised and confident, carried himself with a definite swagger. "What do you want?" growled Muhammad Ez-Zahir, his cocked rifle covering the stranger. "A small thing, as Allah is my witness," declared the other, speaking Pashto with an accent Brent had never heard before. "I am Shirkuh of the Jebel Jawar. I ride to Rub el-Harami. I wish to accompany you." "Are you alone?" demanded Muhammad. "I set forth from Herat many days ago with a party of camel men who swore they would guide me to Rub el-Harami. Last night they sought to slay and rob me. One of them died suddenly. The others ran away, leaving me without food or guides. I lost my way and have been wandering in the mountains all last night and all this day. Just now, by the favor of Allah, I sighted your band." "How do you know we are bound for Rub el-Harami?" demanded Muhammad. "Are you not Muhammad Ez-Zahir, the Prince of Swordsmen?" countered Shirkuh. The Afghan's beard bristled with satisfaction. He was not impervious to flattery, but he was still suspicious. "You know me, Kurd?" "Who does not know Muhammad ez-Zahir? I saw you in the Suck of Tehran years ago, and now men say you are high in the ranks of the Black Tigers." "Beware how your tongue runs, Kurd," responded Muhammad. "Words are sometimes blades to cut men's throats. Are you sure of a welcome in Rub al-Harami?" "What stranger can be sure of a welcome there?" Shirkuh laughed. "But there's Ferengi blood on my sword and a price on my head. I have heard that such men are welcome in Rub al-Harami." "Ride with us if you will," said Muhammad. "I will get you through the pass of Nader Khan. But what may await you at the city gates is none of my affair. I have not invited you to Rub al-Harami. I take no responsibility for you." "I ask no man to vouch for me," retorted Shirkuh with a glint of anger, brief and sharp, like the flash of hidden steel struck by a flint and momentarily revealed. So he then notices Brent chained among this troop and is told that he is bound for the slave block there. And Shirkuh suggests that he may, in the future, serve him. Brent reflected that Shirkuh must know that he was in no danger of being murdered and robbed, or he would never so openly imply possession of money. That suggested that he knew these were picked men, carrying out someone's instructions so implicitly that they could be depended on not to commit any crime not included in those orders. That implied organization and obedience beyond the conception of any ordinary hill chief. He was convinced that these men belonged to that mysterious cult against which Stockton had warned him, the Black Tigers. Then had their capture of him been merely due to chance? It seemed improbable. Shirkuh had dominated the drama ever since he had entered it. A swashbuckler who swaggered upon the stage and would not be ignored. Even Muhammad ez-Zahir was overshadowed by the overflowing vitality of the man. Shirkuh seemed a strange mixture of brutal barbarian and unsophisticated youth. There was a boyish exuberance in his swagger, and he displayed touches of naive simplicity at times. But there was nothing childish about his glittering black eyes, and he moved with a tigerish suppleness that Brent knew could be translated instantly into a blur of murderous action. Shirkuh thrust his thumbs in his girdle now and stood looking down at the American as he ate. The light from the nearest fire of dry tamarisk branches threw his dark face into shadowy relief and gave it somehow an older, more austere look. The shadowy half-light had erased the boyishness from his countenance, replacing it with a suggestion of somberness. "Why did you come into the hills?" he demanded abruptly. Do you know the man called El Barak? Was there suspicion suddenly in the black eyes? I have heard of him, Shirkuh replied warily. I came into the hills looking for him. Can you find him? If you could get a message to him, I would pay you 30,000 rupees. Shirkuh scowled, as if torn between suspicion and avarice. I am a stranger in these hills, he said. How could I find El Barak? Then help me to escape, urged Brent. I will pay you an equal sum. Shirkuh tugged his mustache. I am one sword against 30, he growled. How do I know I would be paid? Ferengi are all liars. I am an outlaw with a price on my head. The Turks would flay me. The Russians would shoot me. The British would hang me. There is nowhere I can go except to Rub el Harami. If I helped you to escape, that door would be barred against me too. I will speak to the British for you, urged Brent. El Barak has power. He will secure a pardon for you. He believed what he said. Besides, he was in that desperate state when a man is likely to promise anything. Indecision flickered in the black eyes, and Shirkuh started to speak, then changed his mind, turned on his heel, and strode away. A moment later, the spy, crouching behind the boulders, glided away without having been discovered by Brent, who sat staring in despair after Shirkuh. Shirkuh went straight to Muhammad. The Ferengi has offered me money to take a word to El Barak, he said abruptly, also to aid him to escape. I bade him go to Jahannam, of course. In the Jubal Jawar, I have heard of El Barak, but I have never seen him. Who is he? A devil, growled Muhammad az-Zahir, an American, like this dog. The tribes about the Khyber are his friends, and he is an advisor of the Emir and an ally of the Raja, though he was once an outlaw. He has never dared come to Rub el Harami. I saw him once, 3 years ago, in the fight by Kalat-e-Ghazeh, where he and his cursed Afridis broke the back of the revolt that had else unseated the Emir. If we could catch him, Abd el-Kafid would fill our mouths with gold. Perhaps this Ferengi knows where to find him, exclaimed Shirkuh, his eyes burning with a glitter that might have been avarice. I will go to him and swear to deliver his message, and so trick him into telling me what he knows of El Barak. It is all one to me, answered Muhammad indifferently. If I had wished to know why he came into the hills, I would have tortured it out of him before now. But my orders were merely to capture him and bring him alive to Rub el Harami. I could not turn aside, not even to capture El Barak. But if you are admitted into the city, perhaps Abd el-Kafid will give you a troop to go hunting El Barak. I will try. Allah grant you luck, said Muhammad. El Barak is a dog. I would myself give 1,000 rupees to see him hanging in the marketplace. If it be the will of Allah, you shall meet El Barak said Shirkuh, turning away. Doubtless it was the play of the firelight on his face which caused his eyes to burn as they did. But Muhammad felt a curious chill play down his spine, though he could not reason why. Brent lay wondering if he had done the right thing. There was no reason why he should trust Shirkuh, but if he had done no good, at least he could not see that he had done any harm, either to himself, El-Borak, or those interests menaced by the mysterious black tigers. He was a drowning man, clutching at straws. Brent was torn between doubts and hopes. He swung between half-hearted trust and complete mistrust of the man. So we will end there for tonight. We have gotten to chapter 3 in the story also. And again, we are seeing traits of other people besides the heroes of the story. And it helps to set up why the heroes are as they are and why they do the things that they do. So, we will meet others in the next episode. And also other forces to be dealt with besides main characters. So, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.